Hello everybody and welcome to another Future of the Fortress. This is the monthly Q&A that Bay12 Games do on their forums. Primarily Toady responds to questions on the forums talking about Dwarf Fortress. Sometimes it's a question and answers thing, and sometimes it's almost more of a community brainstorming session where audience members and people who play the game and support Bay12 get to talk with Toady and sometimes Zach about things that they've been working on and the way they think about the way they design the game. Sometimes they can get quite interesting and in-depth. That sounds interesting? Stick around and let's dive in. Before I read the actual reports in the Future of the Fortress, I'm going to start off by reading Toady's most recent blog post, which came up alongside of the Adventure Mode trailer that was recently released. So this is what Tarn has to say about that. He says, "I've been hitting interface menus one at a time, jumping, picking things up, climbing, inventory, conversations, aside from a few gnarly cases, are done. Combat menus, the log, status, and character generation feel like the big ones left to do, but stuff always comes up. There were so many options buried inside of the conversations, I still need to do performances, and the secret identity specifier, for example. All menus support keyboard only, mouse only, and hybrid approaches." I'm assuming when he says that, he's referring to specifically Adventure Mode and not Fortress Mode. I'm still not certain what the status is on keyboard support for Fortress Mode. Work continues on portraits as well, from goblins and kobolds to clothing, variations, and animal people. New equipment images on the full body tiles for equipment like artifacts and divine weapons also coming. And I think new item images as well. Mission status. Three-Toe writes, "Sometimes it really seems like forces that control the universe don't want us to finish the big update. But look at it this way. The glory will be that much more great. Adventure Mode UI is underway, depending on how much time we have before April. The game will be enhanced in the way it will after the release. That is to say, more fun directed at you, like a fire hose of entertainment. Congratulations to the generous Three-Toe." Thank you, Zach. And then Tarn greets us with fun with numbers, and he says, "Menus and graphics, the work continues. We've set an Adventure Mode release month now, and it's good to have something to point to. But yeah, we're just going to have to keep working after that, so it both means something and doesn't. I think it's nice in the sense that it'll help us crystallize some useful features in the vein of adventure tutorialization that might have been easy to let slip. But we're going to try to do this in a way that's entertaining for returning players as well. 18,000 copies in November. Some portion of this was due to a currency change in Turkey and Argentina, and a healthy chunk was the autumn sale on Steam. Fascinating to watch the data unfold over the year, and Christmas approaches. Our last Christmas was right after the release of the game, so it kind of merged with the release bump. But now we'll see Christmas under its own power." The first question comes in from Kaiju, and they say, "Any chance of ProcGen prepared meals, similar to how ProcGen instruments are currently implemented?" And Tarn quotes Bumber, so I'm going to read their post first, and they say, "That was planned for taverns, but never made it due to time constraints. So yeah, no timeline now." And Tarn's response is, "Yeah, as Bumber says, we had a whole plan for this at the same time as procedural, tavern, dice, board, and card type games. But those things got pushed off into the nebulous future." The next question comes in from Incarius, and they say, "How do you keep motivation, working mainly alone for years and years on a nearly unique project?" And Tarn's response is, "I think having such a variety of things to work on helps a lot. It'd be harder for me if I were, say, balancing and tightening or doing UI stuff continuously. The resulted lack of focus and refinement also leads to some of the problems with the project, most likely. But it's not gonna be perfect. And we also used side projects for this purpose. Breaks into completely different genres are good." The next question comes in from Rhino, and they say, "My brain exploded recently when I discovered that there were no above-ground mushrooms in the world of Dwarf Fortress. How did things end up this way? Would the dwarves reign supreme in every version of history with access to such a resource? Do you have a favorite real-world mushroom type? Thank you." That also goes for the comments section. Do you also have a favorite real-world mushroom type? I'm a big fan of wine caps myself. And Tarn's response is, I recently grew some golden oyster mushrooms from a little kit. That was fun. It is weird that there are no above-ground mushrooms, especially since we ended up adding so many real-world crops over time. I'm not sure if I didn't imagine them in gardens rather than purely being forged. That could be the reason, since I was working on little gardens and plots when the new crops came in. The next question comes in from Elanto, and they say, I know this may sound a little strange, but I would like to know if your idea of an adventure mode will also be focused on people who prefer a more peaceful game mode. By this, I mean, for example, we can focus our objectives on making a farm and living peacefully on it, until the goblins allow us, or spending our days fishing to sell the fish at the nearest city, or, for example, be a merchant seeking his fortune to settle in a big city and have a life of luxury there. Or maybe set up a tavern in a city and work so that others can get drunk. Will there be a possibility in the future of something like that? Would the ultimate idea of the game be to create a truly living world where we can truly do anything we want? And another question that may have already been asked before. Will it ever be possible in the vanilla game to play with other races in Fortress mode? And Tarn quotes a couple responses, so I will read those first. The first one is from Eric Blank, and they say, other races is a possibility, yeah, but not a priority. There was talk of the Myth and Magic update having randomness and magicalness modifier in Advanced World Gen, whereupon, if one or both of these settings is turned high enough, the world would be generated with random, possibly magical species in place of some of the vanilla races, including dwarves. So, if that gets implemented, either these worlds will have playable procedurally genned races or be adventure mode only. And Tarn's response is, yeah, it's really just a matter of work. Every idea you suggested requires not peace, but a robust economy, for instance, which is something we've been vaguely aiming at, but failed to attain a few times. Other ideas of peaceful playstyles require a more robust social sim. These things we're interested in, and combat has always been easier, but it's not the only stuff we work on. I think the reply addressed the other races question. We're going to give it a shot with the Myth and Magic stuff. The game is geared a bit towards dwarfiness, perhaps, and dwarfiness has given us certain leeway narratively, but we're not too far from having above ground stuff working out. You do have a lot less play space that way, spreading out to a much wider, shallower play area as you'd have the NPC human villages is a technical problem. I think what he's describing here is he's saying if you were to play as humans the way he would imagine it, where it would be instead of you having, 200 Z levels to dig down, you would want it to be more of a larger play map. So let's just say you have 10 times the square space to build on, and then there would need to be the NPC human villages, which are findable in adventure mode, which you would want to have active around the play field, which is an interesting concept. I think when a lot of people imagine more playable races in Dwarf Fortress, they think just kind of like, okay, take Dwarf Fortress, but give me goblins. I think when Tarn imagines playable goblins or humans in Fortress mode, he imagines a different game mode that is inherently different in its design than Fortress mode in the same world. And I really understand his perspective here, and I think that's kind of the disconnect between the audience when they ask for other playable races and when Tarn responds with how he would want to do other playable races. It just sounds far-fetched and impossible to complete because the way Tarn imagines it is completely different than dwarves. But let's get on with the next question. The next one's a two-parter, but it's pretty short, so I'm just going to kind of read them together. And it comes in from Jewsfigure. I don't even know. And they say, why can nobles with some sort of succession, not be appointed to a position that is squad holding? Like barons and monarchs cannot be a militia commander. And is there a way that the unit holding a site position can succeed a civ level position? It is possible in World Gen, but it seems not to be in Fortress mode. And Tarn's response is, Is that a specific constraint? I don't remember if there was some annoying thing about squad assignment upon succession. Maybe the monarch shouldn't be the manager of either. And I'm not sure how it picks among all site position holders. I don't think that we have a syntax for that, or code to hold some kind of selection and election among the candidates. Whatever is going on in the world is probably glitchy or arbitrary. As usual, we don't support a lot outside of the default cases, and I'm not sure what the world gen case is here. This may be particularly true with the entity stuff, where various backing and code simulation for the situations is necessary. Essentially what is happening is if your queen is in your fort and they have one child and the one child is in your fort and the queen dies, that one child is not necessarily going to become the new monarch, is the issue. Next question comes in from the username everybody loves to hear me read, which is Dick Butt to Great, and they say, honeybees do not possess the vermin_microtag, and consequently do not spawn in swarms. In spite of this, unused sprite graphics remain in the premium RAWs, which depict swarms of the remote colony honeybee worker caste. What kind of buzzing nightmares did you originally have in mind for our dwarves? And are there any plans to have us experience those horrible nightmares at some point in the future? What's so horrible about groups of bees, Duder? And Tarn's response is, there's no particular plan, but bees do swarm in real life, and it seemed prudent to be prepared. The next question comes in from the Lawnmower Man, and they say, in older versions of the game, in adventure mode, it was a terrible slow fest near Goblin Towers. What are you going to do to fix this? Will you reduce the maximum population in Goblin Fortresses? And Tarn quotes Eric here, so I will read their response first, and they say, I think that's been rejected before. They wanted settlements to have significant populations. I've personally been hoping they'll instead limit the number of units that can be loaded at a time, like loading all historical figures and important positions, like shopkeepers and innkeepers and non-historical nobles, and a few guards. And then if it fits under the cap, select random nobodies. I would be really impressed if they dynamically loaded and spawned unloaded units in your immediate vicinity if the cap is too low to fill all of the needed positions. And Tarn's response is, we're going to look at it, but I don't want to suggest a solution. I've often been wrong about profiling issues, and Putnam has managed some pretty amazing games in fort mode already. Ultimately, if we have to change the populations or how they are distributed, we'll have to go there. Though that has knock-on effects like making sieges less frequent, etc. So we need to be cautious. And that brings us to the end of this month's, admittedly pretty short, Future of the Fortress read-along. If you enjoy these videos, I've done like 30 of them, so you could just listen to me slowly get better at reading out loud over time, or get way better at editing. None of you will ever know. If you would like to see my gardening blog, you could follow me on Mastodon. I almost never actually shout out my social media on these, but yeah, just go follow me on Mastodon if you're in the Fediverse, because that's where I post pictures of my microgreens and tiny lettuce leaves that are growing in my closet. I'm not joking. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.